Alright guys, welcome back. This is take 2 on the review of the Rosewill PB240 high performance liquid CPU cooler. It's a 240mm AIO, no RGB on it, which is nice. First time, this is the second one that I got. The first one had to be RMA'd immediately because it had a leak and corrosion on the cold plate. So we're going to take a look at this one, examine all the parts, make sure everything looks ready to go. It's got a nice, it's not a book, it's a big sheet for the installation. Not too shabby. And let's look at the cold plate right away. Alright, that one looks good. There's no marks on it. The other one had black marks on it. It had a bunch of corrosion right here. Or maybe it was on this end. Somewhere it was leaking from the O-ring. So that was as far as I got on unboxing it. I was pulling the plastic off. Now this one's got an interesting design. It's got the pump built into the radiator, which I've seen this before on another cooler. I don't recall the brand, but I've seen that before. There's a nice ding in the fins right there, and it looks like it actually dinged the tubes. I don't know how well you can see that. This side looks pretty clean. So I still wonder about the flow on here, being that you don't have a pump connected to a cold plate. You know, with the big tubes, you got to push your liquid through the radiator, through the tubes in the radiator, and through the pump. So I'm not sure how that affects performance or not, but we're going to find out. We're going to put this thing to the test. The radiator seems decent. And here's the fans it came with. A couple PWM fans, 120mm. Got the anti-vibration pads on them. Just the Rosewill emblem on there. I'm not sure what brand of fans these actually are because, you know, as I said before, Rosewill's like the Kenmore of computer parts. They don't manufacture their own. And we've got all of our mounting hardware here. Looks like a nice assortment. So, without further ado, let's get started on testing. Alright, so we'll take a quick look at the test system here. This is my own personal computer. This is in an Antec Dark Avenger case, and you can see there's a nice grill opening in the front, and there's a whole lot of room for air to get in. And you can see the top is well vented. You can see the radiator that's in there right now. As you see, the interior of the case, we've got an ASRock Taichi X470 motherboard, MSI RX 580 8GB graphics card. That's a Ryzen 2700 that's running in stock configuration right now. 16 gigs of DDR4 3200. That's a Team Group Team Force Legend. And there's a 240mm Enermax AIO hooked to it. And it's got the speed control on the fans here. You can go right now. I always keep these on low. They're nice and quiet, but you've got your medium and high settings. And you can hear the difference on high, although it's still not loud. And I think when we test these, we're going to test these twice. We'll do it on low and we'll do it on high, and we're going to run. We're going to check idle temperature, and we'll at stock and overclocked, and as well as Prime 95 stocked and overclocked, and we'll run for 10 minutes and see what temperatures get to, and then we'll compare it to the Rosewill AIO. And this configuration here, I've got 3 intake fans here, 1 exhaust fan in the back, and these of course exhaust through radiator at the top. So let me get the side panel back on here, and we'll go ahead and get set up for testing. Alright, ambient temperature in the shop today is 65 degrees, so that's this much in Celsius. And idle temperatures on here hover between 28 and 29. This is it with the CPU at stock and the fans on low. We're going to go ahead and we're going to run Prime 95 for 10 minutes. So at 12:34 we'll come back and we'll check our temperature. Alright, we've been running this test for 10 minutes now. You can see our maximum temperature stabilized at 59 degrees C. So let me go ahead and stop this. And we'll let our temperature go back down to idle temp. And I'm going to switch the fans in this case to high, and we'll see what difference that makes. Alright, so we've reached idle temperature 30 with the fans on high. Let's go ahead and start prime 95. Alright, so after 10 minutes on the Intermax 240 with the fans on high, which there's still PWM controlled, it's just you got a higher range on there. We peaked out at 56 degrees Celsius, so I'll go ahead and stop this. So now we're going to go through, we're going to overclock it, and then we can set everything back to default, and we'll go ahead and we'll put in the Rosewill AIO and see the difference. Alright, so as you see, we have just a 4 gigahertz overclock on here and a pretty aggressive voltage on it for 4 gigahertz. Just to help warm things up a bit. Our idle temperatures are still sitting around the same. They're not going to change that much. But let's go ahead and let's run prime 95 again and see where we peak out at temperatures now. Alright, so after 10 minutes of prime 95 with the fans on high on the Intermax, you can see we peaked at 89C. Let me go ahead and stop this. And you can hear, I don't know if you can probably hear the fans now. The fans in the BIOS, I have the pump and the CPU fans set to auto on standard. There's no custom curve for those. I do have a custom curve for the front intake fan, so as the temperature of the CPU goes up, I haven't set to monitor the CPU, and as that goes up, the fans will increase in speed just to provide more ambient air into the case to pull through the radiator. But yeah, that's not bad at all. Let me go ahead and stop this. And you can hear, I'm not sure if you can pick it up on the camera or not, but the fans do have like a weird vibration when they're running at max speed. And there you can hear them ramp down. And look at the specs on the box here for this is the Intermax Liquimax or Liquimax 240. If you look at the specs on it, fan speed, it's got the switch on there for low, medium, and high, and it'll cap your maximum fan speed on low to 1200, medium 1600, and on maximum, high speed, which it is now, it'll go all the way up to 2000 RPM plus or minus 10%. So yeah, they turn pretty good. They move quite a bit of air through there. So now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna swap the whole AIO out with the Rosewill, and we'll be able to do a nice little comparison now. Alright, so we got the Rosewill cooler installed, and as you see I probably should have flipped the radiator around the other way because I've got hoses there that are dangerously close to that fan, but no big deal. You can see the fans are the ones that, the Rosewill fans that came with it. We're going to test it just the way it came. And right now our idle temperature is actually a little bit lower. We're at 27. Ten minutes in, we peaked at 92C, which really isn't that bad, considering this was a $50 AIO, generic one, basically a Rosewill branded one. And it's got me wondering, is the difference in the fans, because the fans on the Intermax, on max, they were, and I didn't try it on low, but on max they were 2000 RPM. This one here, I'm looking for the fan speed on it now. These are 1800 RPM fans, and I'm not sure. Static pressure on here is 1.48. I know the other ones on high are 3, and I think the airflow is a little higher on the Intermax on high as well. So I'm wondering if we swap the fans around, how much differences are going to be. It's just got me curious now, so it's something I'm going to have to do. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to switch the fans on this cooler here. I'm going to put the Intermax fans on the Rosewill cooler, and then we'll try this again. I almost forgot, before I switch the fans in there, I better go ahead and run Prime 95 with the CPU at stock settings with this cooler. So 10 minutes of Prime 95 on the Rosewill AIO with the CPU at stock settings. We peaked at 57C, which is still, once again, pretty impressive for, you know, a CPU that AIO that I picked up for $49.99 on sale. So really, that's pretty good. So now I'm really curious. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to throw the Intermax fans on there and see if there's any difference. Rosewill AIO with the Intermax fans with the switch on high. And we've got the 4 gigahertz overclock on here. So let's go ahead and see where we peak out on Prime 95. All right, that is 10 minutes of Prime 95 at 4 gigahertz with a pretty aggressive 1.41 B core on the Rosewill CPU cooler with the Intermax fans, and actually it did extremely well. I mean, it peaked out at, during a 10-minute run, it peaked out at 88C. So, yeah, that's pretty impressive actually. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to break this down. I'm going to get it set back up with. I apologize for that. I got my granddaughter here in the shop with me, and she's having a good time. So, anyways, I'm going to get this broke down, and we'll come back and we'll do a side-by-side comparison, and I'll give you my thoughts on this Rosewill AIO. Right, so that was some pretty interesting results, and to be honest, I wasn't even really expecting that. There really wasn't a whole lot of difference between the two, and this one actually performed just as well as the other one with the Intermax fans on it, with the setting, the selector switch on here on high. But then again, you know, it is 2000 RPM, 1800 RPM, but quite a bit of noise difference in these. These at 2000 RPM are significantly louder than these at 1800. You know, I don't know if you don't like your fans making a lot of noise, these fans would probably do better. I mean, there was a bit of a difference with these fans on on the with the Enermax fans on the Rosewill cooler, but probably not enough to warrant the extra noise. So fans aside, let's look at some of the differences here. If you look at the fans, they both have, well, let's talk about things that are the same first. They both have decent fans. They both have 4-pin PWM connectors on the fans. They both have 3-pin pump connectors. They both have rubber hoses that are about the same length, and one isn't really stiffer than the other. They both have swivels on the CPU block. They both got decent cold plates on them that both seem to perform really well. And, you know, I'm comparing it to this one because this is the one I've used this one for almost a year now. And I know, you know, the performance is good in this one. I mean, I'm sure there's better, I'm sure there's worse, but this is one that I haven't had, I'm making a comparison to. They both include a fan splitter cable with a braided coating on it. They both include a nice set of hardware. And on this one here, on the Enermax, you can see, you know, you just unscrew the brackets and you got to screw new brackets on either side. This one right here, to switch from, say, like AMD to Intel, just pop the bracket off. And it's a pretty tight fit in there, but it just pops right off, and you pop the new one in. I guess I mentioned they both have the swivel connections on the block. If you look at the difference in the block, of course, this one's got the Enermax has the pump built into the CPU block, where this one's built into the radiator. There's quite a bit of difference in height right there, so this is a nice little space saver. This one has no RGB, although they do offer an RGB version, which I'll also add the link for that down below as well. This one has an LED in it, but it's just a white. It's like a diffused white, and it's you know, it's not overbearing. So this has actually got a nice LED system in it. It's not RGB at all, but still quite nice. This one, of course, the big difference is the pump built into the radiator. Now they do send a little pad for this. I guess you can stick the top of that, and it goes between there. And because when you have your fans mount on the bottom and you mount this on the top, if you got like the vented top where you can mount a fans or radiator, this is, I think it's supposed to be flush with this, but it seems like it's just a hair higher. But that's, if you have any vibration, it'll stop it. Now this is when I first turned it on, I did hear like a swishing noise coming from it, but after it ran for a little bit, that went away and it was completely silent. I didn't hear the pump at all on here. And one thing to consider though is the thickness. If you look at the thickness of the two radiators, the radiator itself, if you look at the end, I'm trying to turn this so you look at the end caps here, the radiators are the same thickness, but this one's got the side panel that's screwed on is the same thickness as the radiator, where this one you can see it's significantly thicker than the radiator, so it does add a little bit of height to it, and that's so, you know, you can still mount this to the top and not have your pump hit. You know, you don't want your pump sitting higher than your mounting bracket, because then you're not going to fit it up in there without stacking washers or spacers underneath it. And the same here, this is higher, but so your fans clear the this side of the pump here. So you do have a little bit of additional height here to consider. So if you have, you know, a regular one like this and it's an extremely tight fit with the fans, you may have a little bit of issue with this one, but in most cases I think it'll be fine. You do get, you know, plenty long enough wire from here to reach, if you, whether you front mount this or top mount this pump wire will reach. The fan wires are also nice and long. And so yeah, that's the things that are similar and the things that are different between these two. Overall though, I'm pretty impressed with this for the price. I mean, I got it on sale for $50, but I think normal price is $69.99. I'll leave the link down below so you can check it out. And if you're looking for, you know, a budget AIO and you don't want to spend, you know, 70, 80, 90 bucks, you know, this might be one to consider here. This, or if you're into RGB, like I said, I believe they have an RGB version as well. Yeah, not bad. With the fans that come with it, you know, like I said, they're not the best, but they definitely performed decent, and they were considerably quieter than the ones with the Enermax. So anyways, that's going to wrap this up. I think I've covered everything. It's got decent mounting hardware. Instructions are decent. I think I'm going over everything. If I missed anything, just ask me below and I'll try and answer it. But anyways, hope you guys stay warm and have a good one, and we'll see you on the next one.